Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rutherford County Benefits and Insurance Committee meeting. We'll call it to order. And you've received a copy of the minutes, and I hope someone has read those minutes. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? All right. And both of you guys are on a motion in a second. Mr. Hafner, okay. And Mr. Bowles. Anyone have any corrections or additions? If not, everyone in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Now, Mrs. Street, give us some information regarding our financial condition.
Yes, sir. 264 has been included in your packet today. We're going to spend a little extra time on this. I'm going to allow Mr. Alden Davenport from Willis Towers Watson to cover this report. It's new to you all. It'd be your first introduction to this in this meeting. So we'll have him walk through this for you so that you can see it.
So as far as the form we're looking at, it's the line graph. I'm sure you probably already all have. Pretty straightforward form on 3 separate pages, and I'm going to kind of go through, since it's your first time seeing it, page by page, and if you have questions, stop me and let me know. So this is the same expenditure versus revenue report that you're used to seeing in the past, just on a different line graph format. So we've made it a little bit easier to see, kind of changed up some of the color, so it's a little bit easier on the eyes. The top end portion is going to be the monthly revenue versus expenses, just like it was before. The bottom on the first page is going to be the variance between those two. So one of the things that we look at is the variance by month. So were we in the positive or in the negative for 1 month? And then we have a rolling total for the calendar year. So on the very top, you can see by month, in the purple, the revenue for December 2016 was $5.8 million. Compared to the expenses at $5,095,000. That was a positive variance of $784,000 if you take your eyes down to the bottom. And then for the full calendar year, there was a negative variance of $4.5 million that you can see at the very, very bottom of the report. And this will kind of take you back all the way to 2015. And the purpose of the line graph initially was to see the flows and trends of the expenditures versus the revenues for Rutherford County. So it's a little bit easier way to kind of break it out. If there's no questions, I'm going to flip to the second page here. On the second page, we take it from a line graph to a bar graph. On the top, we look at calendar year. On the bottom, we look at fiscal year. On the left-hand side of the top graph, it is prior period year to date. So that would be January 15 through December 2015. On the right-hand side is January 16 to December of 16. Similar with the first page, in purple we have the revenue, and then in yellow we have the expenses of the premium that was collected. So in 2015, our total revenue was $64 million compared to $62 million in 2016. Going with the top of that, the bottom of that is also on the fiscal period on the July date for the same time period through December. So keep that in mind, that those are technically immature claims, being that it's not a full 12 months like the calendar year, but the report was set up that way to run through it. No questions on that page. I'm going to flip to the last page and look at a few of the claims here. So this page, besides a few color changes, will probably look a little bit more familiar to you. This was the original report that we had. So this report on the third page, the data on the first 2 pages is being driven from these results. So anything that is put here is fed to the first 2 pages in a line and bar graph format. One thing that we did kind of want to mention and point out, for this, if you look at the calendar year, 2016 calendar year revenue versus expense comparison, you can see each month and how they're broken out, and then the variance for each month as well. 2 things we kind of did want to mention on here. In November and December, really starting in the middle of October to the end of December, we were running at a projected deficit of around, I believe it was 5.3 million, 5.4 million, something around that. And the last 2 months, we had about $2 million, just under $2 million to the positive go back into the fund because claims started to trend towards the better. So claims started to kind of go down back to where we would expect to see them. And towards the end of the year, we did have a high uptick of large claimants that drove to that. But like I mentioned in the last couple of commissioner meetings that we were in, it was very encouraging to me to see in the fourth quarter of a calendar year that claims started to actually trend down. That makes me feel very optimistic about 2017, being that typically in the fourth quarter claims are on an uptick. Claims are mature, so there are more people meeting deductibles, higher claims, et cetera, et cetera. So it was encouraging to see a trend to the good and putting almost $2 million back into the fund 264. Now, I know I kind of went through that quick. I want to give you all a second to kind of look over the report. Anybody have any questions or anything about anything that anybody doesn't understand about how the report is set up? We want to make sure we take the time.
Ms. Allen, you'll have to pick that up.
We're running these numbers by the fiscal year and by the calendar year. As a group, if we're trying to evaluate how we're doing, which one of those two is more significant for us to look at?
Well, it depends on which title you carry. So Ms. Nolan looks at everything on a fiscal year, just like Mr. Sandvik. That's important to them for their budget process. When we are setting rates, what would be most important for this committee would be to look at the calendar year. That's most important to us. And we do have a significant deficit this year, as Mr. Davenport indicated. We contributed a lot of that to the eligibility changes. We can see where there's an influx of claims. People were trying to get benefits utilized prior to the eligibility changes. Benefits became available with the highest percentage of our population being in the HRA. We expect that our employees utilize the benefit for themselves, whereas behaviors previously would have most likely been to try to bank that money, but now that they had fewer dependents, you would see utilization that way increase as well. So we've already began discussions about rates for the coming up year. We're about at 5 years right now since the last time we had a very difficult conversation about the rates, and that's generally when a true-up period happens, is about every 5 years. So we already know there's going to be another rate increase. We can expect a rate increase even in a great year just because of medical trending, but we'll be prepared to give you what that looks like in the March timeframe.
What would a great year look like? Like, are we trying to get to zero?
Yeah, a great year is where a great year is zero, or where you over-project and underspend. I mean, that's really the best. And I want to remind you that what you see and what our budget reflects is just for those who are actively on the plan. And our current budget arrangement is not actively addressing our OPEB liability, which is our future retirees, and what that needs to look like in terms to properly fund that volume as well. So,
Other questions? Ask one question here. Just if I look at page 3 and I look at the total for the 12-month period, then I look at the calendar year difference in revenue. You've got $2.78 million, a positive number, but the revenue actually went down in 16 versus 15. So, I mean, the 2.7 is a positive, but really we reduced in revenue. I guess that seems to me it's reversed.
Well, and so that 2.7 that you're looking at, that's actually the comparison of each month from 2015 and 2016 is what you're looking at. So if you look at it, that 517,000 is a difference in expenses only or revenue only, not a total number compared to a total number.
But I was looking at out there in the total column, and that little box where it says difference in revenue and difference in expense, 2.78 million is a difference in revenue, and it's a negative 2.6 in expenses. Is that the change from 15 to 16? I mean,
yes, sir, that's correct. So what's happened is the first line in purple, if you look at those, the revenue of $517,000 is the difference between the 2015 revenue of $6.1 million and the 2016 revenue of $5.6 million.
So said another way, in 2015, there was $2.7 million more in revenue than in 2016.
that's what I got. That's where I get it.
Yes, sir.
But the change, if we're looking at I can see that is a difference, but the change is revenue reduced from 15 to 16, and expenses increased from 15 to 16, right?
Yes, sir. And this is an adverse of what
Yeah,
you're looking at
it's-
because of the way the calculation goes. I see what you're saying now.
I understand. Okay, so just get it. We didn't, it's not a good thing from 15 to 16 on revenue or expenses, okay? In fact, it's a bad thing on both of them. I just want to be sure I was somewhat clear on that.
And the revenue decline will be directly related to the plan participation as we continue to, our lowest volume or our lowest cost plan is the HRA through all the different tiers that we offer. So the more participation that we get in that plan, even though there's more cost sharing, the lower the revenue is that we're going to have. And the other issue that we're facing inside of our plan as well is our pre-65 population. The pre-65 population continues to trend very poorly, and next month we'll begin in-depth conversations about what that is actually doing to the total plan itself and some solutions that we'd like to discuss with the insurance committee.
Anyone else want to ask any questions about this financial report? And Mrs. Street, when will we start these discussions regarding what we're going to do for rates, which will not be changing until what, next January?
Yes, sir, that's correct. The earliest that we could start is in February, but generally we utilize claims activity through January for calculations, so I would expect that it would be February at the earliest, more likely in March.
Just in time for us to put those numbers into our budget projections, right, Mr. Sandvik? Yes. Okay. Do we need to approve the financial report?
I need to do Fund 266.
Okay, so she's going on to the next fund now, 266.
For Fund 266, ending in December 2016, we ended the calendar year at, or the end of the month at $348,335 compared to prior year of $301,693.
And Ms. Street, is this business of workers' comp that's still flowing through?
Yes, there are 10 open workers' comp claims currently. So this is 10.
There's 10 claims in here, and someday in someone's lifetime there will be none.
Right, but it's reflective of both the OJI and the workers' comp activity that we've currently experienced. But we have seen the number of open workers' comp reduce tremendously over the last 12 months, so we're pleased with that activity.
Good. All right, if there's nothing else on the financial report, we're ready, I think, for the workers' comp and OJI. And Mr. Good, come forward and tell us about that, please.
Good afternoon. I'd like to report in the month of December, we had a total of 14 injuries requiring medical attention. You can see the breakout here on your report. That brings the year's total to 113, which were recordable. 54 had restricted days, 32 lost time days, and 27 all others. OSHA reports on a calendar year, January the 1st through December the 31st, so that's going to be the total for 2016. On the next page of your report, you'll see that we compared 2016 with the two previous years. We finished up the year with 197 compared to 187 last year and 224 2 years ago. The next page of the report are the incurred dollars. I remind you that incurred dollars are estimates that's placed on it by the adjuster on an individual claim to determine what it will take to close out a particular claim. Should that claim come in under that amount, then of course those estimates are lowered. If it comes in higher, then of course it's going to be increased. We've had a couple of spikes this year, one in April that involved two claims that caused that to go up, and in the month of December we have one claim that caused that spike that you see. Again, December, it takes up almost a year for the incurred dollars to be concreted in, so it'll be a while before we know the results of the December but right now, the incurred dollars for 2016 is $654,000. Since December is the end of the OSHA year, I wanted to, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself. Of the 14 claims, you'll see that December was $147,000 incurred. 3 of those claims of the 14 were in the Board of Education, and it was $3,950 there for the dollars. The County General had the other 11, and it was $143,388. And the next page for the County General shows you where those 11 are in the County General with the solid waste, sheriff, judicial, and county clerk's offices. Because I started to say, I wanted to give you a year's total, and that's what we're looking at on this next page. And you'll see where we have the 197 claims for the year and the $645,000. For the year, the Highway Department had 1 claim. You'll notice that it came in at $223. The Board of Education had 106 claims, and the incurred dollars there that you're looking at is $323,000. And the County General had 90 claims, and they came in at around $322,000. And the next page of your report, you'll notice again, we broke down the County General to identify the different departments and where those claims were for those 90s. And you'll see that the majority of the claims are with the Sheriff's Department and the others that are listed out there. The last page of your report is the OSHA 300 log. At the end of the year, the county is required to post the OSHA 300 log in all county buildings. This has been completed, and it was forwarded to all department heads earlier in the week, and we've asked for their assistance. I've also provided you here with a hard copy. If you would, look in the buildings that you occupy and determine whether or not that's been posted. If it hasn't been, I just ask for your assistance. There's the only thing you have to do is post it. There's nothing else you have to do to that. You'll notice at the bottom of the page in heavy block letters it says post this summary page from February 1st to April 30th. So if you would just make sure that that's posted during that time. If OSHA does come in and pay any of the offices a visit or any buildings, they're going to be looking for that during that time period. Are there any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Good? Mr. Good, I think if you'll look at that last page here, total number of hours worked by all employees is over 10 million hours, right?
Yes. In fact, I did a check this year to last year, and the county is up on personnel and payroll, 2.5% increase from 2015 to 2016, and payroll increased 2.5% during that same period. So we're up in the county. Finishing out 2016, we have 6,453 employees, and the payroll for them for last year, $10,434,862.
Isn't that the hours worked?
Oh, I'm sorry. I said pay. I'm sorry. You're right. My bad. I'm getting into so much in dollars with the incurred dollars. I'm sorry. You're right. Hours. Forgive me.
But the point I wanted to make is over 10,000 hours worked, and if you look at the total number of days away from work is only 717 days, or just a little over 5,000 hours were lost time not worked out of 10 million. And that's a number so small we can't hardly compute it. Pretty good results, don't you think?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Good? All right, thank you,
Thank you very
sir.
much.
Now, wellness update, and Mr. Daniel Puckett's going to give us that.
Mayor, I'd like to ask Ms. Perrin to join Mr. Puckett up here for a moment, please. We intended to have a meeting in the month of November, and it was canceled. And during that meeting, I wanted to announce to the committee that Ms. Perrin had resigned from Rutherford County, and I want to thank her today for the work that she has done in our wellness program. It's been a very difficult path that she has walked for the county. She's done exceptional things in terms of our wellness program and getting employees engaged. When people were saying no, she was saying yes, and she continued to push the agenda. And we've seen a lot of positive work in that area over the years that she's been employed with Rutherford County. So I'd like to thank her for that time. I'd also like to let the committee know that she continues to support the employees of Rutherford County. She was offered a position with Cigna recently, and she has onboarded with them and is in the process of training. And that's valuable to Rutherford County employees because she is a dedicated contact to Ms. Dodd and others in our office who can assist our employees in resolving any ongoing issues that they have with Cigna. So sometimes things are left to the best time, and when she resigned from the county, she intended to go home and only take care of her family. She's been very blessed with this new opportunity, and so we're thankful to have her continued support of our employees. But I wanted to make the committee aware of this today as well.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm a little nervous because I have obviously big shoes to fill, but just the wellness update, I'll run through this pretty quick. The Wellness on Wheels campaign, we're going back to September here because we haven't had a meeting in quite some time. The Wellness on Wheels campaign was obviously put in place to promote the health assessment as well as the biometric screening. You see there we visited with 362 teachers that month, so we had some good participation with that. Excited moving forward how we can increase those numbers as well. Lifestyle management classes, we're continuing those. Those are on a monthly basis. They do come out in the newsletter to all county employees, so keep your eyes open for that. In the last 4 that we've done, we've had 33 in attendance, and we're starting to see those numbers continually grow. I think the big thing is the Know Your Numbers campaign for last year. We, out of the possible 5,000 people that were eligible, we had 4,548 people complete it. That's 91%, the same as last year, which is good. Another thing to point out is we also had 452 that we sent to get fees this year. We're still kind of working through that process to kind of clean up some of those things. So that number may die down a little bit. I think the difference in fees this year, I'm assuming, is because you guys have more employees. But we're still looking for ways to, obviously we'd like to see that number at 100%. A big thing too that we're going to try to target this year is the spouse completion. 40% of the spouses within the county that were eligible were the only ones that were completed, so that we have some opportunity to increase on the spouse side as well. Moving forward here, through September to present, as far as our MedPoint visits with the on-site coaching, I won't break down each month, but I think a big thing to take away is 60 active participants with 88 total visits between September and October, 120 active participants with 85 total visits in November to present. And then just kind of some upcoming events that we have going on. We just launched our New Year, New You program. It's kind of a weight loss program that we're doing. We have 10 people registered right now, and everyone seems excited to do it. So I'll be excited to share the results once the program ends. And the last thing is the webinars, Life Services, Mind Your Money. I think everybody would benefit from that. It's online, on demand, so you can do it through the end of the month. If you want to register that, it's basically lifeserviceseap.com, and the username would be Rutherford, and the password would be employee. That's really all I have. Any questions?
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Puckett? Okay then, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure you're anxiously awaiting this bid presentation for all of these medical services that we're going to enjoy this discussion. All right, so please proceed with that, Mrs. Street.
Okay. Myself, along with Ms. Dodd, Ms. Griffey, and Ms. Anderson of my department, as well as these individuals and the broker, participated in interviews with finalists for the bids that we received for our various products of medical, dental, stop-loss, vision, and prescription coverage. I'm going to have Ms. Derrick walk through what the results of the financials were. Once we completed the financial evaluation, it was determined that Blue Cross Blue Shield and Cigna had the top 2 proposals presented to the county, and those are the 2 individuals that we interviewed in finalist presentations. And so we will provide you with the information that led to that decision, and once we've completed the review of this information, I'll provide you with the recommendation of the interview committee once those were completed.
So you should have in front of you a booklet that looks like this, talking through the 2017 renewal. If you'll refer to page 4, on that you will see those carriers that actually submitted a letter of intent to bid on the business when we released the bid. Of those 9 that had submitted a letter of intent, only 6 of them actually came back and provided quotes to us: Aetna, Blue Cross, Cigna, Delta Dental, iMed, and MetLife. On page 5, we have just an overview of what we had received and what we had gone through with those bids. Of those that actually provided the bid, the incumbent Cigna and Blue Cross Blue Shield, as Ms. Street said, provided the most competitive quotes. Due to the package savings that you get, where Blue Cross and Cigna had quoted on all lines of coverage that we had placed out to bid, it was suggested by Willis Towers Watson that we keep those 2 as the 2 finalists and keep the benefits package together. Cigna's quote showed an overall annual savings, when you look at all of the benefits packaged together, of approximately $551,000 first-year fixed cost, while Blue Cross Blue Shield's quote showed an overall annual savings of approximately $187,000 first-year fixed cost. The one piece of that I will point out is the stop loss that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee provided was not a firm quote, and they would have been able to go back later in the year and revise those numbers should claims come in differently.
So one of the things I'd like to remind the committee of is our renewal date is July the 1st. And so what Ms. Derrick indicated about stop loss is that they provided a quote based on claims experience up to a specific point. And in order to firm the number that they provided in their quote, they were going to provide or require us provide additional claims experience through April, I believe it was, which could adjust the actual quote that they provided. And typically we require that you provide a firm quote whenever you do a bid. Otherwise, we could be in for a surprise later in the year, and it's certainly not something that we would want to do.
Okay. If you'll look at page 6, we've kind of laid out some of the differences between Cigna and the Blue Cross Blue Shield bid. They both provided quotes for administrative services and programs, including your disease management, HRA administration, oncology management, narcotics management, healthy babies programs, the vision and dental administration as well. Cigna included additional programs that they were rolled into their base price, while Blue Cross Blue Shield provided some additional programs, but at an additional PEPM, per employee per month cost. Cigna's bid also included the following dollars attached to it. They are going to give $40,000 annual wellness fund per year, plus a $50,000 annual allowance to assist with an ongoing dependent audit each year, and $10,000 annual allowance toward vendor file feeds. If those vendor file feeds are not needed to get up and going, file feeds for eligibility and such to the carriers, then that $10,000 can then be used to go towards that dependent eligibility audit or the wellness as well. In addition to the one full-time employee that Cigna has placed on site for the wellness administration, they are also going to be giving us another full-time, so 2 full-time employees that will be dedicated to Rutherford County on site to handle the wellness administration. Under the Blue Cross Blue Shield bid, they provided the $40,000 annual wellness fund as well. However, they only provided a $10,000, a one-time dependent eligibility audit to be included in their services that they would perform, but it would not be an ongoing dependent eligibility audit. And they also provided one non-dedicated wellness coordinator, which means she would have other accounts that she would be working on besides being dedicated to Rutherford County. She would have unlimited visits here, but she would not be an on-site employee.
And one of the things I want to point out in regard to this information is our wellness program is fully funded by Cigna currently, so those funds are important to us for the continuation of our wellness program that we have. Secondly, the information about the on-site staffing was made available to to everyone that submitted a letter of intent. So when Blue Cross Blue Shield submitted their proposal, they were aware that we had this resource and that the proposal that they had would actually be a reduction in our current service level. And that's significant for us because we have so many schools and government offices that we go to throughout the year and various programs that we put on, that the manpower is very important to us for the success of our program.
If there are not any questions about the administration or the services that were bid on, I'm going to turn it over to Alden to kind of walk through the financial slides, which would be page 8 forward. Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a question here. Ms. Hickerson.
On the wellness program, where are the two, if we go with Cigna, the two Cigna employees for the wellness program, where are they located? Are they like at their offices but at our beck and call, or at your office at our beck and call?
Yeah, so actually, like Mr. Puckett, he sits in our office today, and the second person would sit in our office, and it has made a tremendous difference having Mr. Puckett on board, specifically as he indicated with those who did not complete the wellness fees. Inevitably, once we can always tell without looking at a calendar when school payroll happens in January 1st, because phone calls start coming in, they see the deductions, right? And before, our process was we would have to call Cigna, open up a ticket, they would research it. Having him on site gives him more direct access, quicker resolution, more timely response to our employees, and it also gives an opportunity for him to speak one-on-one with employees when they're out in the field about the different programs that Cigna offers that can support them in their wellness. Healthy Babies, as an example, is one of the programs that we are ramping up for this upcoming year. Pregnancies contributed to a lot of our expense this year. Next month, I'll have Mr. Huffman come and provide an overall report of what our comprehensive reporting for Cigna looked like in terms of our spend rate. Pregnancies has a key component of that. We want to make sure that we are getting the Healthy Babies program properly marketed out to our staff so that they have that additional resource, and there's also an incentive for them to participate. The nurse line is invaluable to them, and so having him on, participate in the DI conference for the school system and other events that we have has been good for the county and our employees.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes, we do have another question
Christy
back here.
Crowell, REA. My question to you is, can you estimate how much a dependent eligibility audit costs, per year, since they're only providing that for 1 year? And can you tell me, do we usually use our $10,000 annual allowance toward a vendor filing fees?
So I can say this, we have not incurred a file fee expense from Cigna in the 6 years that I've been here. That doesn't mean that we don't have any. They have absorbed those costs and not passed them on to us. So my expectation would be that we could allocate that $10,000 elsewhere, even though that's how they've broken it out. To answer your question about the dependent audit, currently we do ongoing audit, post-open enrollment, and then we do dependent verification at the beginning of each school year, or each semester, I should say. And the dependent audit that we are talking about is the one-time cleanup that we need to do annually to ensure we have proper eligibility on the plan. And the last time we did that, I want to say the cost was around $110,000, but that was for an external vendor. So I can't tell you what the actual value of it is to Blue Cross Blue Shield, or what the scope of their offering, if it would be consistent with what our expectation was, because that wasn't detailed in the bid to that extent.
Okay, so continue on, please.
So on the financial piece, I'm going to jump on page 8. And of course, if you have questions as I'm going along, please stop me. The way that this is kind of flowing over the next few slides, we've done a summary for you of where we are today, where Cigna came in, and where Blue Cross came in. Where they're going to go to a breakdown of the Cigna cost, and then a breakdown of the Blue Cross Blue Shield cost. and then kind of an overall comparison of dental and of vision after the medical and the pharmacy. So if you have any questions, like I said, please stop me. You can see current Cigna, so our today costs. So when we're in a bid situation financially, the first thing that we will look for is, what is our baseline of where are we at today and what are we spending for each category. Then when we get the bids in, we will compare that to where we are today. So as far as the self-insured ASO fee, or the admin cost, as you could call it, currently it was $2.1 million with Cigna. This year, as you can see to the right of that, Cigna came in and, per our other slide, actually decreased the admin fee down to $1.6 million total. On the adverse, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they came in at $2.3 million on the proposed admin fees. Going down a slide, shifting away from the medical, and keep in mind on a self-funded approach, that type of a funding, for medical, the biggest expense is going to be your admin fee, so your administration for the carrier to pay those claims. That's going to be your biggest bucket. There are also a few little things on pharmacy, dental, and vision that will hit as well to look at a total cost perspective. Going down to the pharmacy, the dispensing fee for the pharmacy brand drugs. Current cost was $116,000, and I believe, I don't want to jump too far ahead, I believe it was $1. Yes, it was $1. Cigna proposed 90 cents, so dropped it 10 cents, and that equated to $104,000 on their bid. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Tennessee quoted at $110,000 on their quote. On the rebates, and this is also pharmacy rebates, so of one particular drug, how much percentage of kickback does the county get on a rebate for that drug? The total estimated rebate that the county would actually receive back, current with Cigna was $1.7 million. They're estimating $2.1 million this year, actually increasing those rebates. And then Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee was at 1.69, just under $1.7 million for the rebates.
Can I stop you for just a minute, Mr. Davenport? So I'd like to clarify what a rebate is. A rebate is actually when the manufacturer of the drug provides a percentage of the expense back to the carrier. So Cigna actually receives that money back from the manufacturer, right? And Cigna, rather than keeping that money, passes 100% back to us. And the reason they do that is because we've actually paid for that medication for our employees, right? What Blue Cross Blue Shield had proposed is maintaining a portion of that rebate and not passing 100% back to Rutherford County, which is why you see the rebate difference between the two numbers. So they would have a higher administrative fee, and then they were also going to maintain a portion of our rebate, which 100% currently comes back to Rutherford County. And as you can see, it's $500,000 that they were going to retain, and those are prescriptions that we have paid for out of our self-funded program. So we would prefer to have 100% passed back to us for any manufacturer rebate that's given to the carrier.
Mrs. Street, I mean, the rebate annual cost on Cigna's renewal is 2.185, okay? I see that. But all of those numbers get added up to this total annual cost. So even though we're calling it a rebate, it seems we're including that in the total annual cost. What am I missing there?
Yeah, so on the rebate piece, I see what you're saying, Mayor. The formula that's driven in there looks at a total number, so technically I guess we could remove that out of that total number. And I do see what you...
In other words, that $2.185 million is not anything that we're having to pay toward the...
We do actually pay it. We pay that money out in the form of a claim at the pharmacy,
and
right?
But we get the money back.
And then we get the money back, correct.
Okay. So I guess, how do we really truly understand what the net actual cost is in total?
So really, you look at the net difference between these two, these two numbers are. And if you allow him to continue, I can remove that out and calculate it for you.
Go ahead. I mean, I may be off point, but I just want...
Sure. So going ahead right here on the individual stop loss, reminding the stop loss is the aggregate protection for one claim to not go above $750,000 to protect the county. Currently, the total annual premium with Cigna is $445,000. Cigna, on their bid, opted to hold that cost flat. So they will remain at $445,000 or a fee of $7.21 per employee per month. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, they came in a few cents lower, which we'll actually get to the actual stop loss rates in the next few slides here. They came in at $412,000 on their stop loss quote. And then we have the differences in dollar amounts and percentages broken out. The bottom two lines, we just wanted to highlight two more factors: the estimated discounts, and this is what the carriers estimate that they will be able to get back from their networks, from their contracts that they have, that they will be able to pay on the dollar. Cigna's currently was 59.5 compared to Blue Cross's was estimated at 62%. And then what the carriers will do is put a discount dollar amount at risk. So they put put their money where their mouth is. If they miss that 59 or that 62 up to a certain percent, they'll actually pay back money to the county. So on a 3% margin, Cigna came in at $34,000 that they were putting up at risk compared to Blue Cross putting up $33,000. So just something extra we wanted to highlight.
So Mayor, if I look and I remove the rebates out, the difference between the two, if I just take those numbers out, is Cigna's $2,184,342 compared to $2,842,711.
So let's tell us those two numbers again, please.
2,184,342, 2,842,711. And the difference in rebate amounts between Cigna and Blue Cross Blue Shield is $492,564.
So that makes the spread between Cigna and Blue Cross a bigger number.
When you remove the rebates, yes.
Okay, Ms. Hicks, we'll go with Mr. Sandford to go. He's been pretty quiet back there.
How much of our medical expenditures are subject to this discount? How many millions, roughly?
So you're referring to the actual medical
Pharmacy.
discount that
Oh, he's asking about the
This-
pharmacy that would get the rebate, our pharmacy
no.
spend. What percentage?
No, I'm talking about the medical discount
the
line
discount.
next to the bottom, 62 versus 59.5.
Sure. So, and I can get you exact numbers. I'm working off of what's in my head. I believe when I looked at it, so how the discounts, when you're doing a discount analysis, not to get too deep in the numbers, but you have allowed and you have paid medical claims. So the allowed claims come through, the carriers process those claims, they apply their discounts with their doctors, and then you have paid claims. So we start with the allowed claims. I believe the allowed claims for the county was somewhere $80 million, $81 million. Now keep in mind that's pre-discount, so that's going to be a lot higher than the $64 million that we saw on the 264 fund report. So then when the carriers apply this discount, then it dropped down to the 62. So in short, to answer your question, you're going to start at that $80 million number where the discounts are applied from. Does that answer your question?
Let's follow up on that question just a little bit. Let's suppose it's $80 million on allowed claims, and somehow Cigna gets a discount of 59.5 and Blue Cross gets a discount of 62. That's 2.5% difference in the discount. And 2.5% of 80 million is about $2 million.
That's correct. The one thing, though, I would caution you against when you look at discounts is, first off, it's an average that they're projecting. It's based on their book of business, and it looks at 3-digit zip codes. It's a pretty complicated process. And they had increased their discount by 5 points since the last bid period, which is pretty significant because that means that providers on average are taking a 5% less in their revenue that they are receiving on a claim in order for them to achieve that discount. But one of the things you have to be careful of when you look at these type of things is to make sure that you aren't getting hung up in a shell game, and that you're paying attention to firm numbers that you know that you can bank on and that you know that you will spend. Our claims are currently at the 80 million. They're projecting 62% and 59%. The validity of where they will come in usually is spoken to in terms of what the performance guarantee tells you. And the performance guarantees on the 59.5% with Cigna is much stronger than what the performance guarantee was with Blue Cross Blue Shield on the 62%. Go ahead, Mr. Davenport.
Yeah, and I just to echo those comments from Ms. Street, so just one thing to think about, when we're talking about premium, we refer to that as fixed dollars versus discounts we refer to as soft dollars or projected monies. So, Mr. Mayor, while you are correct, that would be $2 million on 2.5%, 3%. The math is correct. But just one thing I want the committee to consider is if Blue Cross did not hit those numbers, and keep in mind they have put a 3% margin in here, that the county would receive $33,000 instead of that $2 million. That's a big gamble to take on a soft dollar amount, which is, I just wanted to draw your attention to that. On a new business situation. I will say, Cigna at 59.5, that is what they achieved last year. So they're holding firm to those numbers.
You have evidence, you might say, empirical data to show or confirm that Cigna did achieve their 59.5,
Yes,
and we don't really have any way of really being reasonably sure that 62% is going to be achieved.
Yes, sir. And not to say that it won't, but one is proven, one is not, and if the gamble fails, it's a $33,000 gamble versus $2 million for the county.
And there's a 3% margin.
Correct.
Right.
So just something to consider.
Okay, I mean, I think somehow it appears just by looking at one piece of paper and two numbers here that we're leaving $2 million on the table. So I think I hear what you're saying about the accuracy of these numbers, and these are projections, and I don't know how we can really convince ourselves that we're not leaving the amount of money on the table that may be indicated here. Just a question. Ms. Hickerson.
Okay, I got a couple things. Up to your stop loss annual cost, Blue Cross has got $412,611. Now that is the dollar amount that is still not firm until closer to July 1st, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
yes.
so-
Cigna's is firm, Blue Cross's can be changed.
Okay, and then really speaking, not necessarily directly to the discount percentages, but I've been around a little while on this committee, and I've been under Blue Cross and Cigna. My question, and to ask everybody to remember, is these discounts are on what is allowed, what Rutherford County has our policy wrote up, our plan wrote up to cover. I'm just remembering when we had our own plan, wrote up what we want to cover, but the unfortunate thing is under Blue Cross, because it was noted, they didn't necessarily cover and pay like Rutherford County's plan was, because we had the richer of the two plans of what Blue Cross thought was the best interest in what actually Rutherford County covered. So just to know that we're assuming this, we're hoping that these discounts are on what our plan says across the board, not what, what does Blue Cross think it should be as to what Rutherford County is. And I don't know if it needs to be said right now or not, but we've, knock on wood, not had problem with Cigna going, well, no. They come to us and say, it says no. Do we really want to say no? So that's just my little point as to these percentages are on what should be allowed and paid, and we just need to know that this is on our plan. Rutherford County has wrote, not what's across the board for the rest of the general population or the public sector, I guess, or private sector, as we are the government sector.
So what you're speaking to, and I've heard this from Ms. Dodd, Ms. Anderson as well, is you're speaking to claims that were paid outside of what our plan document was, which resulted in incorrect claims being processed to the detriment of Rutherford County's insurance program is what you're speaking to. One thing I would like to point out, Mayor, is you're looking at the $2 million in potential savings from a medical discount. For us to actually pursue that possibility of the $2 million based on the medical discount percentage, we would be willing to put up $1.1 million, $1,150,932 of fixed cost at risk. And the way I've derived that number is if you take the difference between the fixed cost that we talked about earlier, which is $2,842,711 that Blue Cross Blue Shield has in fixed costs, and you reduce it by what Cigna's fixed cost is, which is $2,184,342, we'd be paying an additional $658,368 in fixed cost year one. And then when you add to that the percentage of rebates that would be retained and what that difference is between the Blue Cross Blue Shield and the Cigna, that's an additional $492,564 that Blue Cross Blue Shield would receive in the retention of rebates. Because we would get that money back from Cigna, we would not be getting that money back from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So when you add the higher fixed cost on the ASO, and then you add in the pharmacy rebate cost, you're at the $1.1 million that I referenced. So really, the net difference when you look at what are we putting at risk is $849,068. And as we said, there's a 3% margin where there's no penalty paid if they don't achieve it. And if they do, if they don't, then the only thing that they pay is $33,000. But we will have put forth over $1 million in good faith that they're going to achieve that medical discount that we can't validate today, whereas we know Cigna's currently receiving the 59.5.
Okay, I get what you just said there. So, I think it's good information. I think it's just a healthy discussion for us to ask all the what-if questions, and I think you've responded that those savings potentially that may be out there probably are of such a low margin of actually achieving that we don't want to give up another $1.something million that's real money.
That's correct, sir. The other thing, too, I'll speak from an administrative perspective is the loss in wellness on-site staff would be significant to us. We've had arrangements before where we have unlimited access, but it's not the same as having an on-site person. The other thing, too, is the administrative functions that we would lose. Their recommendation would be that we only choose one method of eligibility feeds to them. Right now we have two with Cigna. We do electronic uploads, and then our benefit specialist has the ability to go in and do a manual entry into the Cigna system, and that is important because that means that an employee who calls that there's been a file feed issue for them at Cigna who's standing at the pharmacy and can't get their medication, right now our benefit specialist can go online at Cigna, add that person, get the pharmacist to reprocess the claim immediately, and our employee can walk out the door with the prescription, and we'll lose that functionality with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Mrs. Allen?
Did Cigna give any indication how they were able to provide more services and additional person and all that for $500,000 less?
So we have Mr. Huffman here, and I'll be happy to have him come up and speak to that if you'd like. Would you like to hear directly from Cigna on it? You want to join us, Mr. Huffman? Because we asked the question as well, and jokingly I asked if we could get a refund for the other years that we had been overcharged, right? But he wouldn't agree to that. But
Yeah, that's a common question when we go to market. One of the things we do when we analyze a bid on an existing client is that we know historically from our experience in the state of Tennessee through Freedom of Information, we know what other carriers are going to quote typically. We know what price level, profit level wins cases and what price level loses cases. So we evaluate that in the current time, all right? So, and we estimate what that's going to be for the bid period, which is requested either a 3-year or 5-year basis. And in doing that, we have probably 4 or 5 different internal conference calls with people all the way up to our president indicating the value of this client, what this client means as far as profit to the organization, what it means to our provider network to have this many members in the network, what it means to the community, and all that goes into the value of what we think the contract is worth. So many times we will take a large reduction to demonstrate that commitment, and not every case. Sometimes we look at it, and we have looked at cases before and saw, well, we've lost a lot of money over the last 3 years. We actually can't continue to do that. We'll go up. Sometimes we say, we've been right for this past 3 months or past 3 years, and it's time to just, let's act like it's new business. And that's kind of what we did this year. So we're saying we want to demonstrate to Rutherford County that you're as important to us as a new customer. We're willing to make that kind of investment in you, take a little loss, and project it forward so that we can keep you longer.
Okay. Ms. Stevenson.
I probably should know what I'm about to ask, but I don't, so here we go. So based on the savings that we may receive if we accept this bid, will that change the dynamic of currently what items are covered in our plan, or is this in our plan would stay the same as it is today, the same benefits, the same everything else? This is just a savings that the county would receive because you want to keep us as a customer.
Yes, that is correct. And actually, they've enhanced their services through the bid proposal that they've had by adding the additional wellness support and other financial support to the county.
Okay, thank you then. So proceed on. I don't know exactly where you think you were. You were still on page 8?
I'm going to jump to page 9 unless there were any questions. We can always come back to the summary. And it's actually a good transition going to page 9. I actually don't want to spend too much time on it because the last few questions have actually kind of revolved around it. So keep in mind the summary page that we have, all the costs on these other pages are going to roll right back up to that. So we've kind of covered our baseline of look at our total cost. Now we're just going to kind of break down specifics in case you need to see them. So this is the Cigna pricing breakdown of their fees. So this is going to break out how much each different item cost currently, and then what Cigna was able to do going forward. It is for a 3-year guarantee period. And you can see at the bottom the total cost, like we had it, to show $500,000 savings compared to now over the next 3-year period. I'll give you a second to look over this page. If there's any questions, let me know. If not, we'll proceed to page number 10. Okay. Yep. On the Cigna Pharmacy on page 10.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't look up Ms. Allen.
On the claims admin fee, on the previous page, we kept referring to that as a fixed cost. Have they priced it per employee, or are you just giving us an average of how it averages out by employee? So like, for example, when we open a new school and add 100 employees, does the number go up?
It does. So it's based on our current enrollment at the time that we took the bids. So when we do add a new school, then the price will go up, but it would go up regardless of who the carrier is.
But the per employee per month is what this is.
Yeah, the per employee per month stays the same, but it's not a capitated rate, which is what she's asking, where it's just a fixed, whatever, $250,000 a year, regardless of number of employees it is on a per head basis.
Okay. On page number 10, this is a breakdown of the dispensing fees, mail order fees for Cigna, and we'll also have the same graph for Blue Cross as well. The main thing to show here is the dispensing fees, like I mentioned on the summary. Currently, Cigna was at $1, moving to 90 cents, and that's also on a 3-year period. Towards the bottom of the page, you can see the totals. Like I also mentioned in the summary, 116 going to 104,000, or just under $12,000 a year in the dispensing fee alone.
If I could expand one thing too, Ms. Allen, that you asked on, typically in a capitated rate, they're allowed like a variance of maybe 100, which we would exceed that when we project out. And all the proposals that we received was on the PEPM basis, no capitation or allowance allowed.
Okay. On page number 11 is the individual stop-loss quote for Cigna. The enrollment that was used here is 5,643. Once again, like Ms. Street said at the time, this was the number of enrollment of the quote. I adjusted that slightly on that summary page based on the enrollment that came in. So those numbers are just about $20,000 difference there. But 721 is the PEPM number, like I said, and that is just, we call it holding it flat. So Cigna is holding that number another year at $7.21 on a $750,000 pooling level. Moving on from Cigna, unless there are any questions on the last 3 slides on the Cigna piece, let me know. We can always go back if we need to. If not, we're going to move forward to the same breakdowns just for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. So their breakdown for their fees are below. And we kind of put this in here with the thought process that if you needed to, you could compare page number 9 to page number 12. So these are kind of the breakdowns that each carrier provided us of their fees and what was pulled into those. Reminding you the total cost, $2.3 million on the admin portion for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And one thing that I want to note is Cigna guaranteed these fees for 3 years at $1.6 million, whereas if you look down at the total annual cost at the bottom for Blue Cross Blue Shield did not. So they will actually be increasing fees for the next 3 years. So in 2019, on 7/1/2019, we would be in a situation where Blue Cross Blue Shield will be at $2.4 million, while Cigna would still be at $2.1. So that gap goes from $500,000 to $650,000 to $800,000 in a 3-year period from where Cigna is holding those rates firm, and Blue Cross Blue Shield is increasing those by a couple percentage points each year. Page number 13, also on the pharmacy. Blue Cross Blue Shield did 50 cents on their actual dispensing fee, but estimated a different number of brand script counts for a total dispensing fee, like we mentioned, of 110, and that is compared to the Cigna cost of just about $4,000 less than that amount. On page number 14, we break out the Blue Cross Blue Shield stop loss. And one thing that I wanted to note that's a little bit different, and I just noticed that says pharmacy quote at the top. I apologize, that should say stop loss. On the 2 graphs here with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, there are 2 different networks. So Cigna has just a Cigna PPO network. Blue Cross Blue Shield has a preferred network and a select network, or we call them in the industry an S or a P network. So just one thing to kind of mention here is why we have 2 different numbers. And I'll explain that here in a second. On the preferred network, you can see that their rate was $6.62. That is compared to the $7.21 from Cigna, total premium $448,000. On the select network, it was priced at $649. Now, we marked this off of the Blue Cross Blue Shield preferred network. On their preferred network, that is for people that are in Tennessee. The select is a wider network that gets outside in different states, but the way that the enrollment falls here, I believe it was 96%, 97%, almost 100% would fall into the actual preferred network. So we calculated cost off of that network at $6.62 when we're comparing to Cigna's number of $7.21. And that is at $750,000 for the same time period. Everything was identical on the stop loss quotes. Before we move on to dental, are there any questions on the, yes, sir?
Stop right there. I mean, pharmacy, Cigna's retail dispensing fee is $1 for brand or generic. Is that correct? Current, and it's going to 90 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to dispense the same number of scripts that Blue Cross is projecting. Is that correct?
So the script.
How do we get a little more money for Blue Cross than we do Cigna when their per script fee is less?
So the brand scripts, generic scripts, where it says number, if you're looking on page 10 or page 13, it says number of brand scripts, number of generic scripts. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom, you can see the same thing on those last 2. That is the projection across the pharmacy regardless. Cigna did their own projection, Blue Cross Blue Shield did their own projection. What we showed was the average projection of what we expect the scripts to be, and that is consistent with the last couple of years on. So what we're seeing here is not the actual script count from Blue Cross Blue Shield on here. So
The number of generic scripts is a number we put in there, is that right?
correct, yes.
And the number of brand scripts, which is the same numbers on page 10 and 13, but
Yes, sir.
they didn't actually use those numbers, they used their own projections?
Yes, sir. So they'll go in, the carriers will have a pharmacy underwriter that will look at those claims.
Okay.
And they'll say, here's an estimated number of scripts and what we estimate it to be. But we estimate the scripts based off of Rutherford County's historical experience, which we have and they didn't.
All right, so I understand 90 cents versus 50 cents, but you still come out with the same dollars because they use their own estimates. All right, just wanted to continue. You were already past stop loss, I think.
That's okay. Yes, sir. If there's no more questions on the medical or pharmacy, we'll be on page number 15 for dental. Okay. On the dental pricing grid, the next couple of pages, pretty straightforward on dental and vision, not really as complex as the medical and pharmacy piece. What we did was put together on the dental piece the top 4 quotes that we received. Currently, the admin fee, $3.06. Excuse me. And you can see that broken out across, and I'll kind of give you a second to look at all these numbers and not try to talk over you. Cigna came in at $2.80. Compared to Blue Cross Blue Shield at $2.74, that was only about a $2,000 savings between those two, given this is a small ancillary line. And just to reiterate as well, we do recommend that the dental, vision, stop loss, everything be with one carrier. Why we recommend that, once we start carving different things out, there are additional fees that can be applied for reporting different things like that, and it would actually outweigh the savings that we would see from anyone else here. So we do recommend, not only for the ease of the county employees who administrate the benefits, having it with one carrier, but also financially it would not make sense to carve those out. Given the large amount of head count that the county has, the fees would actually outweigh the savings.
So what you're saying is that even though the Aetna fee is showing a larger difference, that was the assumption that it would be a bundled package?
Correct. So typically, you'll see a carve-out fee from $1 to maybe $1.50. So that's for one carrier to send reporting to another carrier, because if that carrier doesn't house everything, they charge a fee for sending that back and forth. So here, there's no difference that would outweigh $1 of a fee to have to pay that back out, if that makes sense to the committee.
It actually increased them above what the Cigna proposal
Correct.
is.
So everybody here would be higher if it was carved out, and that is the same case on vision as well.
So dental and vision are employee-paid benefits. County doesn't contribute to them, and our employees will still see a difference of 8.5% reduction over current rates with the Cigna proposal.
And we were provided a disruption percentage analysis on the dental. We were not on the vision, but I wanted to break it out below on the dental. Aetna did not provide a disruption analysis. And before I get into it, a disruption analysis, pretty self-explanatory, but being who is covered today as far as doctors, offices, pharmacies, dentists, eye doctors, all that. Who is covered today? It's a comparison of who will be covered tomorrow, and then each person does their own network coverage compared to where they are today. So it's, of course, Cigna 99.7, because Cigna is who we are with, versus Blue Cross at 97.3, MetLife at 96%. So basically saying 2 to 3% of the doctors, of the dentists, of the eye care facilities would drop off of currently. So there's actually no gain in moving to another network on the dental piece either. Okay. Page number 16, same setup as the previous page except for vision. We took the top 4. Currently, the admin fee with Cigna is 94 cents. Cigna proposed moving that fee down 4 cents to 90 cents. So not too much savings, but still moving in the right direction, a couple $1,000. The biggest savings that we saw was IMED, but once again, the savings that we show here would be negated by any type of self-reporting fee that we would see from the outside coming in for IMED to have to send those reports into the county.
So once the committee had an opportunity to interview Blue Cross Blue Shield and Cigna, we met with Willis Towers Watson and discussed the financial proposal that we set forth before you today, the variation in administrative services that we would receive, and other aspects of the offerings of both of those companies that we had interviewed. And unanimously, it was recommended that we continue with our relationship with Cigna as the recommendation for consideration to the insurance committee. We think that it will provide the best services, pricing, and offering for our employees, both from a user aspect as well as an administrative aspect. So that's our recommendation to the committee for consideration, is to renew our contract with Cigna effective 7/1 for medical, dental, vision, stop-loss, pharmacy, and prescription coverage.
Okay, Mr. Sandvik.
On the stop-loss, the Cigna $2 million maximum, that means
It means that it has
maximum
a,
exposure would be $2 million.
correct, right.
You don't have that ceiling in place with a Blue Cross Blue Shield.
That's correct. It is unlimited Blue Cross. And to that point, it's a good point, Ms. Senick. The probability, we actually do studies of this, of large claimants, there's like a 1% chance of a single claimant breaching $1 million, much less $2 million. So while that is a valid point, I would just make the adverse point that $2 million for one claimant, I've only seen it one time in my career. So that's not something, I almost look at that as unlimited in a way itself, because the probability is hardly not there to reach that point.
Well, we know that they're at a 59.5% just on the medical discount, so you're looking at excess of $4 million in incurred expenses within a year before we'd ever reach that $2 million ceiling, so.
Other questions? The recommendation from Ms. Street and her team of folks here is that we re-up, you might say, with Cigna for medical, dental, vision, stop-loss, and pharmacy services. Mrs. Hickerson.
Just kind of going along with, there may be more discussion, but I'm to the point of just looking at the numbers, and like I said earlier, been here, done that for a while. I will go ahead and make the motion that we go with the Cigna across the board for the medical, pharmacy, stop-loss, dental, and vision. One, as an employee, and all of the men that come in my office and their wives, it's easier to say the card you got is the card that takes care of everything. And they appreciate that, and I appreciate that. So based on that and the numbers, and just not knowing a couple of hardcore numbers from Blue Cross, I'll make the motion that we stay with Cigna where we're at, and their pricing is guaranteed for the 3 years.
Have a second. Mrs. Allen. Further discussion from anyone? Okay, then you're ready to vote. Please, all of you in favor, please say aye. Those opposed? Okay, no one said no, so it was unanimous. All right, thank you. And what other business do you have today, Mrs. Street?
And that's all we have for today.
Hey, I'll just say publicly, some of my questions seem like I was off base, but I think we need to do everything we can to really be sure we've evaluated every component, and I think you did a good job with that, so we appreciate that very much. If there's no other business, then we are adjourned. Thank you very much.